Hey again, it's Clinton from Six Eyed Studio, and I'm back with FLAK Friday Development Diary number 2, TGIF, and happy Friday the 13th. There are quite a few updates I wanted to just run through this time. I'm just going to leave some gameplay here in the background. You can watch me play my own game very poorly. And as I go along, you're gonna see a lot of the changes I mentioned in the actual footage, so that's really helpful. I think first and foremost, I am rather happy with the new HUD display that I have at the top there. You may have noticed last week, you may remember from last week, it was just this big purple bar with a lot of unreadable text and variables displayed. A lot of that was just for debugging purposes and was no way meant to be in the final version. So I really simplified things to 3 elements at the top. The number of lives you have represented by Felicia and her hoverbike. You have 3 hoverbikes. You have 3 lives in the game. We have the time counter. Right now it's just basically counting frames, and that factors into your final score at the end of your run. And then those 5 boxes you see in the top right corner, those each house a different power-up. So it's just another way of knowing when power-up is active. It will be, of course, apparent when you pick up a power-up and you start firing weapons or something. You'll see some change, but sometimes you're not going to be firing weapons, and you want to know when something is still on or not. The exception to this, I guess, is Death's Head. That is the skull power-up that you pick up, and that is a full screen wipe, and that is instantaneous, like you just saw there. So there's no need to actually have an active display for that. And even something for bubble shield, just for sake of consistency, I decided to put a slot for the bubble shield up the top as well, even though it's, again, quite obvious when that thing is active. So that is probably the biggest thing I changed in the last week, and I was really dreading doing UI implementation, and I don't know why, because it actually wasn't too bad once I got into it. There's just a bunch of new sort of commands and stuff I need to wrap my head around, but overall it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And my artist, just Nichols, he basically gave me enough raw materials to work with in order to make the textured, sort of like kind of battered concrete texture at the top. And yeah, really wasn't too bad at all. So again, I have more UI work, more specifically for the front end, in the next several days. So this has sort of bolstered my confidence a bit in sort of tackling that stuff, which is good. Other major changes I did mention from last week, one final power-up called the landmines. I have those implemented. You will see them in action later on if you haven't already. Basically, you pick it up, and for a few seconds you will be pooping out floating landmines that drift lazily behind you. They will blow up after a few seconds, or if they come into contact with an enemy. So pretty self-explanatory there. Bubble shield has a new look, as you can see here. This is the respawn shield. The respawn shield is red, and that's been in the game since the prototyping days. And I just wanted to give it some kind of a visual flair to actually signal to the player when they're safe after respawning after death, because you do have a 3-second grace period where you can get hit by enemy or by a bullet and still survive. And that's based off of the blue bubble shield animation, which I got from Justin early in the week, which looks awesome. And I did run into some problems with the animation speeds early in the week, but after I got those ironed out, I'm really happy with the way it looks. And it's a larger shield than what I had before. It's more of like an egg shape, so it actually makes for a much more sort of user-friendly shield. The first shield maybe is just the hitbox that I had wrong, but it wasn't quite jiving with the actual hitbox I have for the player, because you may have noticed you don't actually die if the fins on your bike or the front prong touches anything, it's really only Felicia's purple hair that you need to worry about. That's the active hitbox. We have to worry about any contact with obstacles or enemies or projectiles. So moving along, added 10 more of those roadblock obstacles that you could blast through. The roadblocks, of course, still drop power-ups at random, so they're like sort of like a valid strategy to shoot ahead and catch those roadblocks and hope that you get more pickups that way, more power-ups. I did a lot of polish in terms of the screen shake when enemies explode. Add in some bigger like screen shake when you take down the big red twins. Let's see here. The game over screen is probably the biggest task ahead of me. You've seen it a few times already. Like right here, I've taken away a lot of the placeholder stuff you saw before. Put in the background image that I plan to use. But right now it's just very static. It's just showing you your score for that run and options for going back to the menu or playing again. Now the big feature I still have planned for that, I'm gonna explain now, and I'm gonna actually solicit some audience participation from you. Hopefully I can get some useful feedback, even though I am less than a week away from my kind of soft deadline. February 18th is when I plan to submit a version of the game to FGL. FGL is a marketplace / community where people can post up their web games and their various mobile apps and try and find a buyer for it to host on their own app store or on their games portal. So this will be my first sort of run, my first exposure to the FGL marketplace. Now, I'm pretty confident I can implement the idea I have for the game over screen. It's just a question of whether it's even necessary, whether it's going to be a compelling feature. So what the idea is, it's called the Lucky Drop. So after you die, you have a chance of scoring either one or more power-ups to be activated at the beginning of your next run. And originally I thought these would be wholly unique power-ups, but due to sort of constraints on my accelerated schedule, I decided to just stick with the power-ups that are already in the game, minus Death's Head, which is like a one-time use power-up. So those lucky shards that you pick up, those coins or the black stars, each one of those that you pick up increases your chance at winning the lucky drop at the end of each run. So when you play the game, I really mean it to be like a very short play session. It's not a huge time investment to play FLAK. You're playing for like a minute or two and then you're done. And for those who are attracted by the score chase is there to keep playing and see how long it can last and try and get a better score. But aside from that, I was hoping to try and dangle another carrot in front of the user's face, in front of the player's face. And this is one way that I thought might be an easy, quick way to do something like that. So, is this a feature that would interest you? Say you're about to put the game down, you played a few rounds, and you think you've had enough, and then boom, all of a sudden they say, hey, on your next run, you get the spread shot and the bubble shield, and you get for an extended period of time, say for the first 30 seconds of the run. Would that kind of compel you to do one more? One more attempt. So that's the question I have for you out there watching. And I guess another question I do have pertains to scoring. Right now the scoring boils down to the amount of time you've lasted plus the number of enemies you killed, and of course there's a different point distribution for each type of enemy, right? So there are a lot of popcorn enemies at the start, which are worth a low amount of points, and when you get to some of the more intense enemies later on, such as like the big red twins or those creepy flying hammerhead bats that you just saw there, those guys are worth quite a lot of points when you take them down. Now, if you could add one scoring mechanic to this type of game, what would it be? Is there anything that you would want to see? For example, in a lot of these top-down shooters or bullet hell shooters, there's the concept of grazing, where if you fly really close to an enemy or an obstacle without hitting them, you actually get points for that, right? So it encourages sort of daring play and high-risk maneuvers. And there's also the concept of multipliers, right? So if you kill a certain number of enemies within a certain span of time, that will also multiply your score more than if you were just killing one enemy at a time, right? So stuff like that, would that be worth implementing? Would it be worth it for me to maybe push out my submission deadline just a little bit more to kind of get those kind of features in? Would that add enough value, or is that something I could just sort of wait and maybe field from the first round of feedbacks I get from the community there at FGL? This is something I could wait on. So those are the two main questions I would like to pose to you out there out in internet land. But I'm pretty much out of footage for this week. I'm just gonna running certain bits on a loop now, so that's my cue to maybe stop talking and get back to work. I have some homework to do this weekend, and I hope you enjoyed this second episode of FLAK Friday. I hope to come back with some good news next week and a lot more progress. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time. Ciao.